Oh, wait, hold on. Should I put on my headband? Yeah, I'm gonna put on my headband. If this is for the people, if the people have got to know whether or not their president's a crook, I am not a crook. Yeah, getting that mushroom top. Just like the atom bomb. We could destroy the planet with those. It's pretty cool stuff. Anyway, hey folks. I just wanted to talk quickly about the sort of trend I'm seeing with the whole Gina Carano posting cringe and getting fired for it, and the recent Steven Crowder video that resurfaced with him dressing up as a trans person and going to the gym. And that seems to be like the entire joke in that video. And I don't really want to talk about the specifics of either of those in so much as I want to talk about the way that people like defend those issues. Specifically, this thing that happens when you try to address, when you, as some reasonable person, look at Gina Carano posting something that suggests that the way that conservatives in America are treated is similar to the way Jewish Germans were treated leading up to the Holocaust. And you say, hey, that's kind of gross and trivializes what Jewish Germans went through leading up to and including the Holocaust, and also demonstrates a total misunderstanding of politics in America today, and is kind of just this really disgusting woe is me attitude that, like I said, trivializes the Holocaust, like one of the sort of most agreed upon atrocities of human rights violations that's maybe ever transpired in human civilized society. And the reaction that I've got from random people online has been something along the lines of, oh, well, she basically suggested that you just shouldn't hate your neighbor. And that's kind of, if you disagree with that, then you're the problem. Which is stupid, because she could have just said that, right? If that's what she wanted to say, did she not know any other way to say it other than by comparing it to the Holocaust? So that's kind of dumb, right? Just sort of on its face. But then I don't think it suffices to say simply that that's dumb on its face, which it is. I'm not saying it's not stupid. But what I am saying is it's representative of a sort of larger trend that happens when you suggest that a person who says something really kind of gross has done so in a way that violates some sort of basics of living in like a civil social world, in a civil society, like not suggesting that people disagreeing politically is kind of like gonna be the Holocaust to you. That would be one example of a way in which it's kind of fucked up to engage in politics generally. But this, I noticed that when this Steven Crowder thing happened, where he had this video surface of him like 5 years ago now, almost 5 years ago, dressing as a trans woman and going to the gym, and nothing happens. He even in the video, we don't see him getting kicked out of the gym, but he even tells us he gets kicked out of Planet Fitness for dropping the weights, which is a thing that happens to everyone that drops the weights. Planet Fitness, if you don't lift at all, and you're not somebody who cares at all about fitness, you might not know, but Planet Fitness is sort of notorious for being punitive against people who lift like heavy weights. They have this thing called the lunk alarm that goes off if you drop your weights, which is a very normal thing for people who lift heavy weights to do. We see in Steven's video that the lunk alarm goes off twice. We don't, like I said, we don't see him getting kicked out, but we see him talking afterwards about getting kicked out, talking about trying to go to a different Planet Fitness and not being allowed in. All very normal stuff, sort of unremarkable stuff. For just a guy, if I just did that, if I just went to the gym and I wasn't pretending to be trans, or role playing, like LARPing as a trans person, and I did the things that Steven did, I would also be kicked out, and I would probably not be allowed into the next place that I went in the same day or a couple of days. But of course, the video was meant to sort of ridicule transness or trans people. I mean, there's really no other conceivable point to the video. The video itself doesn't really have a punchline. There's no point in it at which you're sort of compelled to laugh. Even if you were sort of a transphobe, maybe the beginning where he poses sort of, faux sexually, as a trans woman wasn't funny. It was kind of just sort of uncomfortable for me, because it felt so awkward that this guy who ridicules trans people regularly and sort of fearmongers about trans issues at will all the time, was now posing as a trans woman, and that was the joke, was that there are trans people. I don't know. So, but when, if you make a statement about this in public online, you meet dumb people online, you meet maybe the dumbest people online. Who knows? Who's to say? You make a statement. I made a statement. I said, this is gross or fucked up or whatever I said, and people acted like there was something, I was missing the point, or there was some sort of, he's just joking, or it's just comedy, cool out, man, relax, bro, it's just a joke, why are you the joke police? And it's the through line that is happening here, and I'm sure most of the people that would even take the time to watch this video to this point agree with me, but sometimes I find it even helpful to just see how a person you agree with reasons through what their position is. And what I'm seeing is people who just don't care about the context of anything, right? Like if Gina Carano, if the memes that she posted to her Twitter were not just clearly anti-Semitic, which I think some of them were, like the one with the Monopoly board that had a bunch of very white large-nosed folks kind of running the game, and a bunch of other, you know, ethnicities and maybe not so potential candidates for Judaism were sort of supporting the board, and if only we all stood up, whatever. Sort of like, you know, anti-Semitic dog whistling, right? The point of dog whistling is that it's deniable. You know, they weren't wearing yarmulkes. It didn't say that they were Jewish anywhere, but you kind of get, you can figure it out for yourself. A critical person can sort of reason their way to seeing why that might be an anti-Semitic image that she posted. When you combine that with the idea that she's suggesting that people who support the literal most recent president of the United States, who's still popular among that party's voter base, are somehow similar to Jews in Nazi Germany. People who kind of gaslight you about that, and I'd say that's what it is gaslighting. It's being extreme about a position and then acting like you're the extreme one for acknowledging that what they're doing is extreme. People who gaslight you about that are either willfully ignorant on what the context of that is, or don't care about what the context of it is. And maybe both. And I would say it's the same for the Steven Crowder stuff. You know, he gets away with a lot because he calls himself a comedian, which I find dubious. I've never been even inclined to laugh at a Steven Crowder segment. I've been inclined to laugh. That's wrong. I've been inclined to laugh at Steven Crowder, but not for the reasons, you know, that he would imagine his audience would laugh for. I think Steven Crowder is like a real tragic kind of guy. You know, the way I kind of picture if we're gonna, like 100 years from now, if there's gonna be like sort of like a statue of Steven Crowder, it would be sort of the one, you know, the one where the Greek guy is sort of you know, kind of curled up and why did I do that kind of guy. A real tragic figure, that guy. And I say that jokingly, but I think it is really sad the way that Steven has to live his life when he's, I think, really obviously got some sort of sexual repression going on, and yet has made his career off of sort of mocking derisively what maybe some people in the past would have called sexual deviance. You know, calling Carlos Manza a lispy queer, where the joke is that he's just a gay guy, and dressing up as a trans woman, where the joke is that trans people exist. People who sort of ignore the context and say, well, he's just joking. What's the joke? You know, what's the joke? The joke is that trans people exist. What's funny about that? It's these things, these kind of blinders on people who just decide, well, you know, there is no context. There's just the thing in isolation. There's the Gina Carano tweet about Republicans being persecuted or whatever, or Trump supporters being persecuted, and don't hate your neighbor. Because that was, you know, when I think about the Holocaust, what I think was really wrong was in Germany, people just kind of had really severe political disagreements. That's really what was wrong, right, with the Holocaust. It wasn't It wasn't the 12 million people that were put to death in death camps. It wasn't the expansionist war that Germany fought that got, some multiplicative number on top of that 12 million killed for kind of no really good reason. It wasn't any of those things. It was just like Germans internally had severe political disagreements. That's what the problem was, and that's really where the other things came from. It was just political. It was just political disagreements. It's not like there was a group of people who took advantage of sort of this kind of really base, disgusting hatred of particular groups of people. And kind of scapegoated them as the reasons why things were going poorly. It wasn't that stuff. It was just like, it was really kind of just like the way that, Democrats don't like Republicans. That was really what was wrong with the Holocaust, which is like, I'm being ironic, but that's what you would have to actually believe about the Holocaust to think that Gina Carano's tweets were not kind of disgusting, so that's really all I wanted to say. I could talk about the ways in which people would respond. The left said that Trump is like Hitler, which is also disgusting, but it's not. He is. Trump is like Hitler. The rhetoric is very similar. It's sort of echoes of the same idea. Like I mentioned, scapegoating this sort of minority groups as the real reasons. Minority groups like immigrants. I hate to break it to you folks, but immigrants are not the reason why the economy sucks for most people. That might really shock you. And if you do feel shocked by that, leave a comment down below. But the fact is that immigrants are a net boon to the economy that they immigrate into. The reason the economy sucks is because of the extremely rich people that bankroll the policies that the Republican Party pushes for time and time again. Policies like staying involved in eternal war kind of forever, and tax cuts for the super rich. That one's really easy. That's one that kind of like, if people don't see who benefits from those, then they're maybe not worth trying to convince, because if you tell people, the rich got tax cuts and they don't understand that that's really good for rich people and not really good for the rest of us, then they might not be the brightest bulbs. We'll kind of leave it at that, but with a wink and a nod, I think you'll see what I'm saying about those folks. But other myriad other policies like severe austerity on healthcare. Like they don't really want you to have healthcare unless you're pretty rich. They'd prefer for the drug war to kind of just keep going, even though that violates what they claim to be their central tenets, like personal civil liberty and small government. They would love to outlaw abortions. Small government though, but they would really like to be able to tell you how you should sort of deal medically with what's going on in your belly. The sort of biological processes that are happening kind of between you can't see it really, but between your nipples and kind of your private bits. They would really like to be able to say what happens there. if you're a lady. If you're a guy, that's obviously it's your body. But like if you're a lady, if your private bits are, innies and not outies, then they'd really prefer to be able to tell you what you can do with those, and when. They don't really like it if you're gay. I'll just put it out there. They don't really like it if you're gay. They're trying to update those positions, I think, to be more palatable to people now. Instead of just saying you being gay is wrong. We're accepting of gay people, but you shouldn't be able to get married. You should be able to be gay. We're not saying you can't be gay. We're just saying, you should have limited sort of opportunities for starting a family. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Yeah. So this is a thing that Republicans do kind of consistently, is they act like the thing that sort of catalyzes your response to say that some person is taking some unreasonable positions. They take that event in total isolation and they just kind of examine that thing under a magnifying glass, and they say, well, I don't see the racism here. I don't see the anti-Semitism if you just kind of narrow it down and zoom in on this tiny little area, then I don't see it. I don't see it. They didn't say the N-word, so, basically impossible for it to be racist. Gina Carano didn't justify the Holocaust. She just equivocated between having political disagreements and being taken to concentration camps. That's not anti-Semitism. Come on. It's really gross stuff in sort of very obvious ways. And that's all I wanted to talk about, really. I know I got kind of sidetracked here at the end talking about all the other stuff that I don't like about Republicans. I don't like a lot of things that the Democrats do either, but they are closer to being correct on their policies. So, I'll spend less time complaining about them relative to the Republicans. And that's my pledge to you. That is the pledge. And we're kind of in the no-go zone territory. We're in the if the green zone is sort of where combat happens. What's the area called where you don't have combat? I was never in the military. I have a friend who's in the military. That's what I'll say. When people are like, "Where did you serve?" I'll be like, I served at Kenyon College. Well, my friend was in the military. I had 2 friends, now that I think about it. 2 friends who were Marines, and I worked with a bunch of other ones who were, kind of silly guys. But so I like some of them. They're very silly folks. Anyway, I'm gonna end this before I just sort of talk myself into a hole that I can't get out of. Have a blessed, holy day. Tell me in the comments below how you would have rephrased Gina Carano's tweets to be palatable to the mainstream public, to not be equivocating the Holocaust with people thinking that it's kind of gross to say that Mexicans are rapists. Let me know.